Somebody got all up in his feelings about something and sent me a rather detailed message on a social media app. So let's break it down together, section by section. There's no title or subject to this message. It just starts out with number one. This is from Bobby Ball, his name, I didn't pick it. And he says here in his first segment, inflation through the roof. He pumped trillions into Build Back Better spending sprees right when supply chains were already wrecked from lockdowns. Groceries, gas, rent, everything doubled or more. Middle class got crushed while he bragged about creating jobs. Yeah, jobs that barely cover the electric bill now. So, first things first. Those Build Back Better spending sprees were several of those initiatives were bipartisan efforts with Republicans in Congress and a Democratic president to get things like infrastructure passed and the PACT Act and things like that. Things that both Republicans and Democrats wanted and thus voted for it. The supply chains weren't wrecked by lockdowns, they were wrecked by a global pandemic. And I know you guys want to put all of the supply chain issues at the feet of Joe Biden, which is going to be interesting later on in this message. But you want to put all of that at the feet of Joe Biden, yet countries around the world had these lockdowns because of COVID. This was not a Joe Biden thing. As a matter of fact, Republican states in this country had lockdowns. But you guys don't ever want to talk about that because that doesn't fit the narrative. And he was creating jobs. He got us back to pre-pandemic employment levels and surpassed that by over 3.5 million jobs. Did that in 4 years. And you want to talk about barely being able to cover the electric bill now? Well, who's in fucking office now, champ? We move on to part two. Botched Afghanistan withdrawal. 13 American troops dead in that Kabul airport bombing. Abandoned allies. Billions in weapons handed to the Taliban. And Americans left behind. Looked weak as hell to every enemy watching. China and Russia took note. I didn't like the way that Joe Biden handled the withdrawal in Afghanistan as well, and I've criticized them for it. However, you're complaining about 13 American troops dead in that Kabul airport bombing, but I don't hear you say anything about the 13 American troops dead in the Iranian conflict that didn't even have to happen. You don't have anything to say about that, do you? Those 13, acceptable. These 13, not acceptable. You have the typical shit about handing billions in weapons to the Taliban. It is a standard procedure to disable and leave equipment behind. You know that we've talked about that a million times. And as far as looking weak, my guy, the ceasefire with Iran lasted less than 24 hours, and the strait is closed again. Wonder if China and Russia are taking note. Part 3, he goes into open southern border, millions of illegals pouring in, fentanyl killing record numbers of kids, cities overwhelmed with migrants, sleeping in parks, crime spikes in places that voted for him. He basically waved them through while calling it humane, humanitarian crisis he created. The southern border has never been open. It's a bullshit talking point. And have you ever been to a city? My guess is no. You are handed bullshit talking points and you run with it like the good little lemming that you are. 4, energy disaster. Killed the Keystone XL pipeline on day one. Halted new drilling leases. Pushed Green New Deal nonsense. Gas prices hit $5 to $7 a gallon in spots. We begged OPEC and Venezuela for oil while our own rigs sat idle. Energy independence gone. All of this is a bullshit talking point. The Supreme Court actually killed the Keystone XL pipeline the summer before Joe Biden was elected. He just pulled the final permits on it. He did not halt new drilling. As a matter of fact, in his first year, he far outpaced anything Donald Trump did in his first 4 years. He never pushed the Green New Deal. That was never passed. It was never even on Joe Biden's agenda. And you want to talk about $5 to $7 a gallon gas? Champ, we're there. We're there. The national average right now is sitting over $4. We're paying $8 out in California, $4.30 here in the suburbs of Chicago. Plenty of places are already paying $5 to $7. Don't hear you saying shit about that now. As far as begging OPEC, it was Donald Trump's original OPEC deal that caused the first spike in gas prices. That happened under Joe Biden. Something we have been talking about forever. And no, we've never been energy independent. And we're not energy independent now. If we were energy independent, the closing of a strait halfway around the world would not have such a severely negative effect on our gas prices. 5. COVID mandates and overreach. Forced vaccines on the military, cops, nurses, fired people who said no. Schools shut down way too long. Kids fell behind in reading and math for years. Economy tanked harder because of his follow the science that kept changing. The forced vaccines were overturned for the general public by the Supreme Court. The military, police, and nurses have to get all sorts of vaccines all the time. It's not just one. And if you don't understand that, then this is a conversation you really shouldn't be happening. Unless you have kids in those schools, I wouldn't worry about it. Because our kids were doing just fine with the remote learning and distance learning that we had in place. And most of that happened under Donald Trump. It happened in 2020. That's when the economy tanked. Dumbass. Point number 6, record national debt added more to the debt in 4 years than most presidents did in 8. Trillions in student loan forgiveness schemes that courts kept slapping down while printing money like it was candy. Our grandkids going to pay for his vote buying. Donald Trump in his first 4 years added double to the debt what Joe Biden added in his 4 years. Once again, something you're not going to hear on OAN, Newsmax, or Fox. And yes, he forgave trillions in student loans, which was an economic plus to this country. People are bogged down with student loans that they're never going to be able to repay. Absolutely. As far as printing money, we had 2 stimuluses under Donald Trump. We had a farmer bailout. We just had another farmer bailout. We're giving millions of dollars to Central American nations. I don't hear shit from you. Point 7, weak on China and foreign policy. Balloon flew over the whole country before he shot it down. Hunter's laptop and business dealings in Ukraine/China. Ignored Russia invades Ukraine. Israel gets attacked. America looked asleep at the wheel while our enemies got bolder. He wasn't weak on China. As a matter of fact, if anybody was weak on China, it was the president whose daughter got multiple patents from China while he was in office. And yeah, a balloon flew over our country. Jesus fucking Christ, really? Hunter's laptop? You're going to go back to that? Donald Trump's administration the first time around had Hunter's laptop for the last 14 months he was in office. How come nothing came out? How come there were no charges? The FBI and the Attorney General had it for 14 months. You want to talk about business dealings in other countries? You want to talk about the $1 billion that Jared Kushner got? You want to talk about the billions of dollars that are being pumped into Trump cryptocurrency scams and betting sites like Polymarket and shit like that? No, you don't want to talk about any of that, do you? That's going to ruin the narrative. And Russia already had a chunk of Ukraine throughout the entire first administration. They had been occupying Crimea since the Obama years. You conveniently forgot about that, didn't you? You want to talk about looking weak? Donald Trump keeps telling you we have completely decimated the Iranian army and that we've won this war. But yet he can't get a fucking cargo ship through the Strait of Hormuz. 8. Crime and defund the police vibes. His administration cheered soft on crime DAs, bail reform, and riots in 2020 that never really stopped in some cities. Shoplifting epidemics, carjacking, homeless tent cities, everywhere. Mostly peaceful protests, my ass. Hey, dumbass, he wasn't president in 2020. You stupid motherfucker. His administration chaired riots in 2020. How is that possible when he was a fucking civilian in 2020? By the way, most of those riots, it's already been proven in courts of laws across the country, like in Oregon and in Minnesota, that those riots were actually begun by white supremacists trying to agitate people. Defund the police vibes? You don't even know what the fuck defund the police is. You're one of those people that's dumb enough to think that defund the police means take money away from the police, starve the police of their funding. That's not it. As a matter of fact, in a lot of cases, People want to spend more money on police departments. They just want it spent differently. They want to make sure that we don't send a jack